Usually I have like a nice topic I want to talk about, but today I don't have one. So I'm just going to go off some thoughts I've been thinking about during the week. And the first one that I thought about was the solar system. Why would I be thinking about the solar system? Well, I was in prayer today and I was like thinking like, hey God, I'm preaching today. What should I talk about? Because nothing's coming throughout the whole week. And so I started thinking about just kind of like life in general. I've been thinking about a lot of life the past year or two, especially. Thinking about how arguments that people have with each other, like priorities in life. And, Pastor's going to hate this, but I watched the Barbie movie recently. And there's one point that stuck to me. I mean, that movie's like really corny, but it's also hilarious. And it talks about basically like the whole point of the movie is like kind of being content with yourself as a person. And obviously they talk about like, feminism and what they call patriarchy, which is like manpower kind of thing. It's pretty funny. But Ken, he says by the end of the movie he realizes that like his personality and who he is enough, right? Like he doesn't need Barbie to define him, right? And so he says, I am Kenuff. So maybe that's what I'll call the title, huh? But I was thinking about there's so much stuff that goes on in your life. You're looking for jobs, you're looking for houses, you're looking for, you're having children, you're got to pay your bills, you name it. The world has so many different things that you have to take care of. And while those things are important, it can become a distraction. And I think for me, I had to constantly remind myself that the most important thing is our relationship with God. And it might seem like a broken record when I say that, but it's like when you go on a fast, like I talked about last time, like, hey, someone listened to worldly music, and then I feel like it's messing me up, messing up my flow with life. Maybe it's bleeding into certain areas and it's causing curses to occur in my life. So I want to cut off worldly music. So that's what I do. And things are going well, but then somehow I fall back into it, and now we're in a cycle, right? And I feel like in the Bible, like even with Judges, it talks about that constant cycle with God's people, right? And I feel like that's a message that is relayed throughout the ages, but the importance is also forgotten. About, like, for example, there was a recent situation because Elder Daniel is my dad, right? And Elder Ellen is my stepmom. And even though we're related, we still have our personal issues between us, right? Maybe we'll have like a little squabble here and there. And so something like that might occur, right? Or maybe something, let me look at my notes. Yeah, worrying over small things. And so that kind of comes back. I was thinking about this, and then I thought it randomly, like the solar system popped in my head, right? And when I sold my Corvette and I got the Sentra, I remember like a few months later looking at what Sentra meant, and it meant center. And I was like, man, that's like very fitting for my life right now. Like God wants me to get back in center, just put him in the center, put him first, right? And so I was kind of thinking about the solar system, and I'm not the type of person that's going to think about space, right? I'm not a space person. And so maybe there's some astrologers out there. I don't know. I hope not, because you better be focusing on God, not reading, what do they call that? Horoscope, right. We don't read horoscopes in here. And so for a second, I don't really remember like my science class very well. So I was thinking like, wait, does everything revolve around the sun? Or I kind of forgot. And so I looked it up, and then it was like, it said everything revolved around the sun, right? And for a second, I was like, wait, it doesn't revolve around the earth, because I remember that being like a false thing in school. And so everything revolves around the sun, right? S-U-N. And I was like, man, that's such a coincidence. Like, that can't be like, God, there's no way God made it like that to be a coincidence, right? Maybe I'm just like a dad, and I'm just thinking of like puns, you know? And so I was thinking like sun. Everything revolves around the sun, right? And so I was like, I don't know why this is coming in my head, so I went to look it up. And NASA, right, I got facts here. The sun is the only star in our solar system. It is the center of our solar system, and its gravity holds the solar system together. And so I thought about that first, and then I started thinking about like life's problems and like how easy it is to distract you. And like even in my current situation, how I'm like trying to search for a job because God told me to go get a job, right? I haven't worked in 3.5 years. So obviously that gap is, it's hard for employers to want to even give me an interview because they think maybe my skills are rusty or something, right? And so, like, I'm thinking, this situation's constantly on my mind. I'm constantly thinking about it, and I'm like, and then, Pastor is pointing me in the right direction. Like I said, like, my season right now is me going to God, because that's what God told me to do, right? God said, I want you to come to me now. But I'm thankful that, like, because I was going in a certain direction of, like, I want to go apply for audio stuff, right? Because that's what I went to school for. Got a degree in economics, and then I went into sales, and then I was at Zoom, and then I stopped Zoom, and then I went back to school for audio engineering. And so I went to apply for the audio stuff, and nothing's coming up. And then, like, out of the blue, pastor's like, I don't know, I think you should go into corporate. I didn't even ask him, right? And then I'm thinking, like, okay, so I've been applying to a lot of corporate stuff. And the thing that I have experience in is sales, right? And so I'm applying for a lot of different things. And it's constantly on my mind. It's like a daily thing, And, like, to be honest, it can get stressful because, like, it just consumes you. You just think about it all day long. And it almost gets to a certain point, and it was kind of this is how it was in the Barbie movie, because something had happened, and the Barbie, she just like gave up, right? And she just like was rolling on the ground. Like there was a scene where she literally just like sat down on the ground, and it was just like this, and then like laid on her back, and then rolled over and was just like laying there in self-pity. And I was thinking, like, man, maybe that's how I look sometimes, Like, maybe I just, like, throw a tantrum, and I'm like, oh, God, like, I'm done, God. I can't do this anymore, We've all done that. And, like, whether it's a job situation or anything that you're going through, it's just, like, it's so easy to have your mind plagued with that thought, Oh, I got to get a job. Oh, my credit card's building, even with the Elder Joseph's current or recent testimony, right? Oh, their credit card is building, right? I've had that too, where it's like, no matter what you do, in the back of your mind, that credit card number is in your head, right? Oh yeah, it's there. It doesn't matter if you're having the best day, you're at the church picnic, you are watching a movie. In the back of your mind, you're thinking like, dang, my credit card's like $7,000 right now. Like, you can't escape it. It just plagues your mind, right? And like going through this process of the job thing, and it's like, I think God's teaching me endurance and to just like keep pressing, like Pastor said about the license, for like some of the people in here that got a driver's license. You just keep going even until you're 90. You go until you pass, right? Even if you got to take it 100 times, you're going to pass that driving test. Tyler's about to take his soon, and he's going to pass. He's 18. Yep. And so you just constantly, you get to a point where like, even like maybe some of you guys might relate with the credit card thing, or like another thing that's just like constantly attacking you, and you're just thinking about it, right? And it's like you get to a certain point where like you get so worn out that you have to think, there's got to be a different way, right? Like I got to be doing this wrong, you know? And I had always remembered back in the day, Pastor would tell me like, you know, when I used to hate when he told me this because I heard it so many times, but he's like, you know, if you're frustrated, that means you're in the box. And I used to hate that word box. It was like, it used to bother me. Now it's just kind of funny, but it's true though. Like if you ever feel frustrated, then you're either overthinking or you're out of God's will, right? That could apply to so many things. Oh, let's say, I can use a very basic example. I run, let's say, not me personally, but let's say I run like a mile each day. I usually lift, and then after I lift, I go run a mile. And so what if one day I'm like, you know what, I'm going to go run 10 miles. And it's just like taxing my body, right? And it's just killing me. And so we could think of that as like I'm pushing into a boundary that I'm not ready for yet, right? So like my body isn't trained to run 10 miles. I'm only running 1 mile. And so that could be like frustration. You are stepping out of a season or into an area that you're not meant for yet. And so this frustration comes, this worry comes. And so you have to remind yourself to almost back down, to kind of back down. And for me, what I've realized is that, like, especially in the past 2 years, so I remember I told you guys about the discipline I got in February of 21. And during that time, up until now, even in this current situation where, like, God's putting a demand on me, right? I've learned the importance of prayer and reading. And this might seem very, like, basic to you guys, but I think, like, I've really, really learned the importance of how vital this is. It's like when you go, like, I seen Stephen had the EMT shirt on. I trained to be an EMT at one point. I told you guys this, like, when I was going through the thing with that legal thing when I was in high school, and then the lawyer was like, oh, you know, why are you going to be a firefighter, right? Like, at that time, I was EMT. And they always talk about vitals, right? Your vitals. Like, first thing you do when you pick up a patient or you're checking on a patient for anything, you check their vitals, right? You check their blood pressure. You make sure they have a pulse. Like, the simple foundational things, right? And it's like, I feel like when God comes to us to do a checkup, the first thing to do is going to check our vitals, right? If we're not praying or reading, then we cannot get to the next steps. We can't diagnose, right? Like, let's say that you have an underlying problem, but when you go in, the EMT comes and he's checking your vitals and your blood pressure is skyrocketing. What are they going to do? They're going to go address the blood pressure issue. They're not going to even get to the real issue because they have to fix the first level issue, which is the blood pressure or your vitals, right? And so that could be like your prayer and reading. I don't even know why I'm going prayer and reading route, but that's been like I've always known the importance of it, but like when God's like, I want you to start coming to me, I realize now that like if you do not have a foundation in your prayer and reading, you're screwed because you have no lifeline. You have no blood flow. It's like if you had a phone and you were talking with somebody and all of a sudden your phone dies. It's like you're in the middle of a desert. You don't have any communication. What are you going to do, right? And I think it's important that you keep that blood flow of your prayer and reading, right? Even if it's just something small, like if new people come, or right, even if veterans that are here, it's just if you're running short on time, you can't just give up on your prayer, right? You still have to give something. You have to give something, right? If for those who pray in the morning and pray at night, you have to sustain that. For those who are new and coming, just start 15, 30 minutes a day, something, right? You got to get that flow with God. And when you do that, all the things that you think matter in life, they just kind of start to just like fade in the background. Like you still take care of them, but it kind of just fades away. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like that's what's happening for me personally. It's like you can get to a point where something is just overwhelming you, and you have to step back and say, okay, yes, I have this task to complete, but at the end of the day, what's the most important thing? And the most important thing is our relationship with God. And for me, in order to stay, whether it was right now or especially in that season that I had just went through previously, I wouldn't have been able to stay sane mentally if I didn't stay in my prayer and reading, especially prayer. Because you just start getting mental attacks about anything. Pick your problem. Pick your life issue that you're thinking about. And if we're not able to discipline ourselves and go into prayer, we can't get that sustained. We can't get that relief. And so the solar system, that's kind of what I was thinking about. It's like, even though everything in life is always constantly changing, right? Your bills come and go. Your job come and go. People get on your nerves. It come and goes. Like they used to say, like clothes change, but people are the same, And it's like, I think about that with God. It's like everything in life is just moving like this, but like God is just sitting there in the center, unchanging. And I was thinking like, even in the Barbie movie, there was a part where she was talking about, like, because her life's perfect, right? But like she realizes that she actually, in the midst of all the chaos, she's able to realize what she was made for and who she really is, And so a combination of that and the solar system and NASA, I was able to, I was thinking about a lot of these things. And I was thinking about how, like, even in my life, things just constantly change, right? Like, one moment I first came to the church and I didn't even know what tongues was, and I was freaked out. And then the next moment I'm getting imparted tongues, and then the next moment I'm getting married, and then the next moment I'm leaving Zoom, and then I'm having a kid, and it's like even if you just look at my life or your life, it's like you can look back and so you have gone through so much, right? Like broke my arm, it got healed. I forgot about that until I just thought about that. Now it's crazy. Making music, going back to work, having all these different roommates coming in and out of the house. It's like so many things change in your life, but yet when you look back at all your memories, there's only one thing that was the same in every single one of those seasons, and that was God was always there. And I remember this, I remember when we had the old sanctuary over here, and when I told you I went through that legal trouble, and I got arrested, and I was there for the night. And like Elder Daniel was saying, it really is actually freezing cold in there. It's pretty ridiculous. It's like 30-something degrees in there. It's freezing. And I was sitting in the sanctuary, and I was thinking about that moment. This was years ago. And like I had thought about like all this stuff that maybe there was like unforgiveness there, and I was like, there was just a lot of memories were coming up, and I was crying, and I was just thinking. And then like as I was during prayer, closing my eyes, I don't like to use these kind of words like vision, but I don't know what it was, but like maybe it was, I don't know what to call it, but like I just saw like myself sitting in that jail cell on that. There's like a little stone. I remember there's like a little stone block that you sit down, and like I just saw the Lord behind me with his hand on me like this. I didn't see his face, but I just saw his back, and I knew it was him, and he was like, he had his hand on me like almost like it's okay. And that, like, I remember seeing that just broke me. It just, like, totally broke me, because I was like Pastor Steve says, even when he drove drunk for all those years, as a non-believer, and God was still there, like, basically holding the steering wheel for him, right? And, like, even back in my stupid choices and times, even in that, one of the darkest moments for me, like, God was, like, showing me, like, he was there. And it's like, you could look back at all of your life and like, you could look, you could just look at, you could even just go in your photos and just scroll through, and you're just like, you're just going for ages. Like, we have so many pictures, and you're just like, all these memories. But then when you look at that, it kind of gets me worked up thinking about it, because even through all of that, and every single day that you had went through in that time, God was there. Meaning, like, you had access to God even then. Like, for example, I came here in 2015. Every single day that I had come to this church, no matter if I was going through a hard time, I was going 27 rounds with my wife. I was working at a job that I was trying to get accustomed to. I was, whether that's growing spiritually, every single day there was things changing. But yet, the thing I could always go back to was I could always go back to prayer and reading. I could always commune with God every single day. And that might seem like a well, duh, but like really think about that, and that's why that whole solar system thing came in my head. It's like everything's always moving and revolving in this world, but yet the sun just stays constant right in the center. And by all its gravity, it just holds it together. And it's like, it's so easy to get out of the orbit, per se, and getting, like, how they say there's like an orbit around, like, there's like the ozone around the earth, but then like outside of that, you start getting into orbit and you could get like sucked in. I feel like that's life. Like, there's always things that you have to take care of and accomplish, but like we can't be so sidetracked that we get sucked into that orbit, and now we're just following the flow of life. We're just following like the world does, like zombies. They just go around, oh, just another day, just another day, just another day. When we forget what we're even revolving around, why we're even here, right? And I feel like in the Bible times, that was represented by idols, right? But like idols could be anything. And so in the Bible times, they had always got sucked back into their idols, and then they forgot why they were actually living. They forgot that they're living for God. They forgot that God had brought them to a land and increased their time and money and everything else to bring them to have their relationship deepen. But they got sucked back into the world, back into the flow of just the world, the spirit of the world. And I feel like when Jesus says, like, you need to, like, one of my favorite verses, like, just worry about today. Tomorrow will take care of itself. Tomorrow will have its own problems. And like that really resonates with me, because there's always something new every single day. And it's like, if we get caught up in like, oh, this is a good time. Oh, this is a bad time. Oh, this is an okay time. Oh, this is a sad time. Oh, this is a happy time. It's like we haven't learned to stay rooted in God, because we're going with the emotions of the world. We're just going in orbit. We forget that there's something in the center that's not moving, that's just there, just sitting right there waiting for us. It's shining on us, right? And that's God. And so, I don't know, it just really got me thinking about that. And I want to read Matthew 5. Oh, and I remember telling you guys about that book a while back, The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. Obviously, I can't say the last word, but you can imagine it. And that book talks about the cares of life. And I really like that book because he talks about people who care about like little, stupid little things. He talks about like a lady that goes into a grocery store and like the cashier rings up her soap second instead of first. I can't remember the exact thing, but like, and the lady like had a fit. She couldn't handle it. It was just too much, right? And the guy was like, you see, people, especially in the Western world, they care about so many stupid things that it's like, it's because they don't have something bigger to care about, right? It's like, let's say, so we have God, right? If we knew our purpose in life, if we knew where our care should go, these other small things, although we do need to take care of them, they won't worry us too much. It's like seek the kingdom first, all these things will be added, right? And it's like he was saying, like, people, when you see people out there squabbling over little things or worried about stupid things or making like, you know, the scratch on their car such a huge deal, or you know what like really gets me is when you go to the car wash and like those car washes like $25, right? And like people bring their like super nice cars in there. And then like those poor workers, man. Those poor workers, I think about it every time. The person drives their $100,000 car into the car wash. They pay $25 when they could go get it washed by like a professional company for like 100, 150. And it comes out of the wash and the person's like walking around the door for like 20 minutes. Like, you know, you don't see them saying anything, but all you see is like, and I'm thinking like, dude, you just paid $20. Like, go home and clean it yourself. You know, like, why are we so, like, we're so consumed with these, like, the dumbest things, you know? It's like, you just paid $25 for a car. You get what you pay for. If you want a professional wash, go pay $300 and get it detailed. Why are you making this poor worker who makes minimum wage walk around the car with a rag in the blazing hot sun and cleaning up the last smudge when you have a towel at your house, right? And it's like, the world gets so caught up in these small things that we forget the purpose of why we're even here. And we could zoom in a little bit. We get caught up in the small things, even in our church, that we forget why we're even here, you know? And like, as God has constantly sent a lot of people to my house, it's gradually and slowly has softened my heart because you just see that everybody has a different life. Like, everybody's different. Everybody has different problems. Everybody's going through different things. And when you see the problems of someone else's life and the problems of your life, and you see the problems of this roommate and the problems of this roommate, and you're thinking like, everything is so variable. Everything's so changing. But yet, we're lucky because we have one core purpose that we can focus on. A lot of people out there don't have that. They just think, why was I born? Why am I here? Why am I just going to work? And why am I just, you know, clocking in, clocking out? Why is it just, I'm just going through the motions? They're going through the motions because they don't have a purpose. They don't have a purpose in life. They don't know anything that's bigger than them. And so all they can do is focus on them. They're the sun. They're the center of everything. So everything revolves around them. If their soap gets rung up second instead of first, oh, they're going to have a fit. If they don't get the spot on the inside of the door jamb where you can't even see it, oh, they're going to have a fit. They're going to make a complaint. Now, Elder Danny used to work at a car wash, so he knows all the crazy complaints. Right? Oh, if, you know, even I think about shoes now. I don't know how I got so wrapped up in all that, right? Like, they're nice, but it's like, If it gets messed up, just buy another one. There's so many out there. It's like, who cares, you know? Like, oh, you know, someone cuts your shoe in half on accident. Oh, well, I'll just buy another one. It's like, oh, you stepped on my shoe. Okay. If it's that bad, just go buy another one. And it's like we get so wrapped up in this thing that we forget why we're here. And like, with this whole job thing, it's like, I keep thinking to myself, like, okay, I got to keep my focus. I can't let this get out of control. You know, it's like I have a demand from God, but at the same time, my focus needs to be on God. I can't, you know, then we're going to turn into Job. We're going to turn into, we have so many things that we're worrying about because there's so many problems arising, yet we forget why we're even created. We forget why we're even here, right? Job's so concerned about his accomplishments and his successes that he forgets who he is compared to God. And Job is putting himself at the center. He's being the sun, and everything's revolving around him. And so God has to come and check him and be like, yo, Job, where were you when, you know, he starts asking him these crazy questions. Where were you when I created the water? Where were you when the animals learned how to mate? Where were you when the thunder came out of the sky and I took it out of the storeroom? It's like, obviously, Job, it's like a rhetorical question. Job doesn't have an answer to these things, and God's reminding him and us for all the ages, like I talked about last time. Job, it's not a self-pity party to compare your life to Job and say, oh, poor me, I'm going through life like Job. And that's not the purpose of Job. The purpose of Job is to show no matter how high or low you are, you answer to God. That's the purpose of Nebuchadnezzar's story. No matter what season you're in, you cannot put that worry, that stress, your success, or your failure above God. God is still first. And so what I'm learning is, and this might sound trivial, but when I'm in a situation where I have to actually, God's teaching me to trust in Him, it's, you don't have an option. You can't just stop praying. You just cut your lifeline off. You just cut off your water in the desert. Who are you going to reach out to? Who's going to help you? God's the only one that's going to help you, right? And so let me read this here. This is basically, they call it the Beatitudes, but it's basically the New Testament 10 Commandments is the way the TPT says it, right? And so let me just start. One day, Jesus saw a vast crowd of people gathering to hear him, so he went up the slope of a hill and sat down. With his followers and disciples spread over the hillside, Jesus began to teach them, what happiness comes to you when you feel your spiritual poverty? Click on that footnote, the second one. Oh, the other one. So it says, blessed to you when you feel your spiritual poverty, or when you're humble in spirit or poor in spirit, which means to be humble and totally dependent upon God for everything. Okay, so this part stuck out to me because it's basically saying when you're in a situation where you feel like all hope is lost, you're blessed because now you only have the option to go to God. You don't have the option to go run to these other worries and get back into the worldly orbit and be a zombie and just forget about everything else. No, you have to step back into the center. And it's saying it's almost a blessed situation to be in a place where no other option is there except God. Because then God can come through and there's a testimony, right? It's like Elder Joseph's testimony. They were put in a situation where there was no other option. He had his job and he knew he had to stay there, but his boss cut half the salary. What is he supposed to do? His credit card's building up. They're trying to watch Barbie, and all they can think about is a credit card, and it's stressing them out, right? And they're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do, right? But in that situation, as the testimony reveals, it's exactly like this, because when they're in a situation where there's nothing else they can do, they are very blessed because now their only option is God, which means when God is the only option, we know how God provides for his children, right? And so the fact that they were in that situation and all they can do is depend on God, now God is going to be their provider, right? If you want to have a backup plan, if you're in a situation where you're trying to watch Barbie and you think about your credit card bill, but you have 25 backup plans, or maybe you have 2 backup plans in your pocket, you're not really stressing out too much because your dependency isn't upon God. Your dependency is, well, I have a backup plan, right? But when you don't have a backup plan and God is your only plan, God will then be your provider. Not your backup plan, your provider. You see what I mean? And the testimony reveals that because God came as their provider and not only made up for what they lost, but then and 5 times more, right? Let's continue. For yours is the realm of heaven's kingdom. What delight comes to you when you wait upon the Lord? For you will find what you long for. What blessing comes to you when gentleness lives in you? Click on the first footnote next to gentleness. Okay, that's not the one. Oh, actually, no, that is the one. The Aramaic word makike implies being both gentle and flexible. Let's scroll down. There's more, right? Oh, there's more on that one. Go to the next one. I feel like I read something else. But I remember saying, one of the footnotes said, comes to you when gentleness lives in you. And then there was a footnote that said something like, the TPT defined gentleness as gentleness and flexibility. So it's like gentleness, like not only us being gentle, but us being gentle in heart, softened in heart. You see what I mean? When you're gentle, you could almost think of it as like, oh, I'm being soft, right? Like, let's say we have a baby and I'm touching them gently, right? I'm touching them softly. And so Jesus is also speaking not only the outward, but the inward receiving of it too. Be gentle in heart, right? When something hits your heart, receive it, right? Let it be a sponge. Don't be hard-hearted. When God comes to you with a correction or when God tells you to go a certain direction in your life, you need to be flexible. That's what this is also saying. What blessing comes to you when not only are you loving, but you're also have an open heart. That's what he's talking about. For you will inherit the earth. You see this? Because then you're living in the fear of God. And what Proverbs says that the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. How rich you are when you crave righteousness, for you will be satisfied. How blessed you are when you demonstrate tender mercy, for tender mercy will be demonstrated to you. What bliss you experience when your heart is pure. Click on that footnote. Yeah. When your heart is full of innocence. Continuing, for then your eyes will open to see more and more of God. It's like in the other verses it says, more of salvation will unfold to you. How joyful you are when you make peace, for then you will be recognized as a true child of God. Okay. I have a small story. There's a situation that I didn't handle very perfectly with my dad, Elder Daniel and Elder Ellen. And it was something stupid. And I was in prayer and I was like, you know what, I should apologize. That wasn't nice, you know. And so I'm looking for jobs, and it's like the Antarctica Ocean or the Pacific Ocean, the Mediterranean Sea, all combined in one. There's just nothing out there. And I'm like, you know what? I am going to go jump into that sea called Google, because I've been living on Indeed for months. And I go on Google and I type in sales job Silicon Valley. It's like so desperate. Just give me anything that I could see out there. And like the first one that pops up is a job from the American Heart Association. And it says development director, school engagement. I'm like, what the heck is this? I typed in sales. And I was like low-key frustrated. I'm like, and so like I'm looking and there's like all these random like jobs and I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, what's this? What? And then I typed in like a different wording maybe to like trick Google. And like the same thing came back and I'm like, what the heck is this? So I click on it and then like, I'm like, I don't know what this job is. So I type in their, like, I don't know if you apply through Indeed, submit the resume there, right? But when you apply on a company website, you have to, like, for example, I had looked up, like, the top startups in the Bay Area, right? So, like, I went through and I went to their website, and then you had to click on careers, and then you got to search job title, right? Whether it's audio, sales, right? So I type in, and then you click it, and then you apply, right? And so when you type in, like, sales, for example, it's going to filter your search results based on that. And so I was on the American Heart Association website, and it recommended me this job, and I don't know what the heck it was, and I was like, whatever, let me just type in sales in the search, and I press enter, and that's the only job that comes up. And I'm like, what is this director of development school engagement? What does this even mean? And why when I put sales, that's the only one? And so I click it, and I scroll down, and it's a sales job, and it's like fundraising and sales. And I was like, interesting. So I'm like, I'm reading. That's how I read like this. I was reading. And I was reading, and it was like, it sounded really cool. And I was like, oh, interesting. And so it basically said that you're in a sales position, working remote, and you cover San Francisco, San Mateo, and San Jose County, which is Alameda. And you basically reach out to schools or other corporate organizations, and you try to get them to sponsor what they call the Kids Heart Challenge. And so it's basically the Kids Heart Challenge and American Heart Challenge. It's basically trying to get kids and youth from K to 12 to get off their phones and get outside and eat healthy. It's like everything I do every day. Right, Tylen? He's constantly hearing it, but he's doing a good job. Alex, too. And I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, this job was made for me. I was like, and then on top of that, so it's like, it's inside. So if you ever hear the term inside sales, that means you are literally inside a building selling, okay? It's not rocket science. Outside sales is, anybody want to guess? Right, outside. I know it's a little complicated, but we'll get it. Outside sales is you're literally going out, like in the old days, there's like in the McDonald's movie Founder, right? Is that what it's called? He's going around selling milkshake machines, right? Business to business. So it's a combination, this job. The accounts that you already have are different schools or other corporations, and you go primarily to the schools, and you hold like assemblies or rallies there, and you get the kids fired up, and then they go home and tell their parents, and, they're hoping that within that group, some parent out there has got deep pockets. And so you hold this event, and then all the parents and the corporations come that sponsor, and then you make your sales there, right? And they give you fundraising to support the cause. And so that's how you make your quota. And I was like, this is cool, I was like, I've never heard of anything like this before. It's corporate, it's sales. I'm like, I'm going to apply for it. And then as I'm applying, I'm like, wait, I know someone who worked there, Elder Ellen. But we had a little squabble, which was my fault. And I was like, and it basically kind of just like went away as time went on. But then like I hadn't formally apologized, and I felt like I should. And I was like, I'm trying to think of the order of this because it's very important. Come on. What was the order of this? Um. Oh, I found the job. I wasn't even thinking about like that I should apologize, right? Because as a leader, I'm responsible. You know, I need to fix situations, especially if it's my fault, right? And it wasn't anything serious, but it was like it's one of those things. It's like I should, you know, I shouldn't be immature, kind of thing. And so I I texted her. I wasn't even thinking about the other thing, like apologizing yet, and oh, I was like, hey, I remember you worked at the American Heart Association. What is this job? Because it was like confusing, and she basically told me what I just told you. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, you know. I was like, I'm gonna apply for it, and she's like, oh, I think I know someone there that's been there for 10 years. I was like, oh, shoot, okay. And then, so I applied, and then she had texted the lady, that lady that works there. She had worked there like for 5 years, 5 years, 4 years ago. Okay? Not to be too confusing. 5 years, 4 years ago. And so I filled out the resume. It was like super easy, and it took me like 5 minutes. And I sent it to her, and then the lady's like, you know what? I'll just forward it to the recruiter internally, the main lady. Also, backstep a little bit. The audio job that I had been reaching out to, God doesn't want me to go in that direction. So now I'm going in a different direction. I haven't heard back, but I don't need to hear back anymore because I got to go a different direction now. And so I give the resume to Elder Ellen, and then she gives it to the lady, and the lady submits it internally. And then like I usually get up, I pray in the morning, and then like I'll eat and stuff, and then I'll go read, and then I'll pray again, right? And so I was like in my middle between. I was like I had prayed in the morning, and then I ate, and then like I usually like look for jobs and I'll apply. And so like I applied, and then I read, and then right after that I went to prayer, right? So I was in prayer, and then like I thought like the situation that had occurred like a few weeks ago had came in my mind, and I was thinking like, you know, and it wasn't even about the job. It was just like it didn't even occur to me. Like I just thought like, oh, you know what? Oh no, wait. What day did I send the resume? Friday? Monday? Yeah, something like that. And then like maybe like was that the same day when I texted you guys, or that was like a few days later? Yeah, that's okay. Now that makes sense. So I had submitted the resume, and then like the weekend went by, and it was like Monday, or I don't know, something like that. And then um like a few days later I was praying, and then like the thought randomly came to me like, oh, you should apologize, you know? And like, you know, and then I was thinking like, you know, the first thought comes to you is like, I don't need to apologize. But then I was like, and then I was reading that verse, right? The gentleness, flexible thing. And I was thinking like, God wants me to change, you know? Like, my personality, as you guys know, has grown over the years, but I can still be a little too bold, a little too forward per se. And so I'm working on that over the years, and I realize that it's just stupid to act like that. Like it's good in certain situations to be direct, but like you also have to have self-control, right? It's not like I exploded on them, but it's like I didn't handle it very rightly. And so I went back, I was in prayer, and I was like, you know what? I think I should apologize. So I wrote them but texted them like, basically, hey, I apologize for doing this and that. And then not even 1 hour later, the company contacts me back. They're like, hey, we want to do an interview. And I'm like, dang, see, it's like I was talking about last time. I was like, God wants you. It's like a lot of stuff we've been talking about. Pastor's talking about you got to change first before you can receive the new. That's one thing. And then the second thing I was talking about was Hosea, right? Hosea, there I talked about there was the 3 steps, the 3 orders, or the 3 steps that need to go in order for you to wait on God, right? And the first step is you got to return to God. So first, realize you're the problem. And then 2, you have to be consistent in your new ways that you repented of. And then 3, now you're eligible to wait on God, right? And so like first, God's coming after me for my relationship with my wife. And like I said, I'm not telling you guys this so like, oh, hear about my life. It's just to be open. It's just to be open so you guys can connect. If I could just, preach about random stuff, that's fine. But like, if I preach about what's near to me, then maybe it'll connect with somebody because that's what I know, right? I know my experience because that's what I experience is my life. And so I hope when I share these things, it's like at the other companies, like at Zoom, there was one of the best CEOs there because he was really big on like executives having an open door policy. And for those of you guys that don't know what that means, open door policy literally means what you think it means. The executives keep their doors open so that any employee can go in and talk to them. Now, obviously, as we went public, they put a little bit more restraints on that. But they basically were showing people like, hey, we're willing to be open, because we want to help you guys. And so when I tell you guys stuff like this, it is personal to me, but I'm willing to open it to help you guys. That's the purpose. It's not so you can, learn about my life and, oh, how good for you. I don't care about that. It's to help you guys. And everybody's going through similar things like this, right? And so, yeah, they contacted me. And then, and you always, I wasn't even expecting to be on, or go up a little bit, to be hitting on this sentence, but that was, keep going. Oh, where's that gentleness one? There it is. What blessing comes to you when you, how can I phrase this in a way? When you are gentle with others and open in heart. That's basically what Jesus is saying. When you're gentle with others, when you love others, and you're open in heart. When you're open to correction, you're open to the prompting of the Holy Spirit to say, hey, I think you need to go do this. Right? That's the key right there. And so, why did I bring that up? I brought this up for a purpose. So, that's right. Saturday, what day did you text me? Wednesday? He texted me, YPJ texted me during the week. He needed help with like some video thing, like a video recording that he was doing. And like, to be honest, the old me would be like, oh no, I can't help, But after going through all this like discipline, I feel like it's changed me. And I was like, you know what, let me help, let me just help somebody. And so he came over on Saturday and I helped him with his pre-recorded video that he was making for something, and then, and then it turned out good, and then he went home, and I didn't think nothing of it. I was like, great, I got to help somebody. And then Monday, they're like, Monday they sent me the email, and they're like, hey, can you send us a pre-recorded video as an interview and send it to us? And I was like, wow. Like, see that? It's almost like that. First, don't be so selfish, right? Open your heart and just, if somebody needs help, help somebody. You know what I mean? It's not even to receive anything. It's just help. Just help to help. Like, we were watching this one movie. It was like a really terrible movie, by the way. But there was one scene that really got me because basically these 2 guys were stranded, and the lady, they were being the cops were searching for them, but they didn't do anything wrong. They were just had like a vendetta against them because they're in Mexico and they were corrupt. And anyways, this lady, this owner of this shop, like this owner of this restaurant, takes them in, right? And starts making them food and like taking care of them because they don't have a place to stay. And she's like being so nice that it's almost weird. And the guys are like, hey, like you've done enough for us. It's fine. And then like, you know, but like she turns out to be genuine, right? And she's like, they're at the dinner table one night and the mom is like, okay, let's say a prayer. And so the mom says a prayer and all she said was, dear God, thank you for this food and thank you that we can help others. And like that sentence right there, I was thinking like, oh, she's grateful, you know. She's grateful that she can help others. You know, like we don't get to thank God like that all the time. We're so consumed, including myself, with our own selfish things in the orbit of life that we forget why we're made, like I was talking about earlier. What's the center purpose? What's the sun in our life? Right? What's the S-U-N, S-O-N, whatever. It doesn't matter. You get the point. And so the purpose is that we're here for God's people, right? And so when YPJ texted me, I'm not thinking of anything I can get in return, right? I'm not thinking about, can I, maybe this will get me a job. Like, I was thinking about that movie, you know, and maybe that was God, like, helping me, you know? And I was like, you know what, let me just help him out, you know? And so I helped him out. And then I don't think it's coincidence that 2 days later, they email me and say, can you do basically the exact same thing you just helped YPJ with, but for your own job that you're trying to get? You see that? And so, it's like, you never know, like they say, you never know who you're going to meet out there in the world, right? It's just like, I'm learning more and more to just be kind and stop being so, I guess, immature and just like stuck up with your own opinions. And it's just like, maybe you should just kind of put your guard down for a second. Be gentle in heart, not just toward others, but just be open. You never know what could come your way, right? You never know who you're going to meet. You never know the person that you were nice to remembers you 5 years later and you run into them and then they give you a job. Like that, was it Bishop Kim's? I did a Bishop Kim's sermon like, I don't know, maybe last year. And he was talking about how one of the deacons got in a car accident and it was not his fault. But the guy was like really genuine or he felt bad because like his car was fine, but the other guy's car was really nice, right? And like there was a chauffeur driving the nice car and there was like somebody in the back. And like, or he might have been a pastor. And it wasn't Bishop Kim, it was somebody else, another member. And so the guy gets out of the car and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, even though it wasn't his fault. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, you know, like, you know, I can help fix this. I can help pay. And he was like really humble and like burped. And he was really remorseful. And I guess the guy in the back seat was so touched. He was like an executive of some huge company. And he had heck of money, right? Or maybe it wasn't a member of Pastor Kim's or Bishop Kim's church, but maybe a story that Bishop Kim had told. But the guy in the back seat was so touched by his attitude that he got out and said, hey, it was something like, hey, why are you acting like this? And he's like, hey, I just want peace, you know, like I just want to be able to fix the situation. You know, I'm sorry that this happened. He was just like really humble, right? And they started talking a little bit, and the executive had found out that this pastor was trying to build a church, right? And the guy was so touched, the executive, that he was like, I'll build your church for you. Paid for the building of the church. You see this? And so it's like, it's not like we go around acting like this so that we can expect something in return. But my point is, why not just be kind to somebody? Just for the sake of, because like, and also in this, he talks about, you know, blessed are those who are peacemakers because those are those who have their identity in God, right? As God's children, we're supposed to be peacemakers, right? We have to just, basically that just means just be kind. Just be a nice person. Don't be a jerk, right? I've been a jerk so much in my life. It's like after you ruin so many things by your own hands, you just realize, like, what's the point? This is just a waste of time. I'm just trying to uphold my own pride here. Why don't I just be nice just for the sake of being nice? It'll make you feel better, right? And so, yeah, that thing happened with YPJ. Was not expecting that. Not saying this is the job, because who knows, but, you know, it's a nice little small testimony there. And then, yeah, also too, right? Like, for example, with the elders, maybe for a few days, I didn't want to hear from them, right? And so, but then who is God using to help me to get this job that is looking very promising? It's the same person. You see that? And so maybe I need to humble myself and realize that I'm the one that caused the situation to get messy in the first place, and I got to fix it. You see this? It's like, what story is that? It's like, I don't know, it's like Pastor says, like, it's always going to come through, you know, the situation that you don't expect, right? And so it's like, that's kind of what I'm feeling right now, is like, God's coming after me for things spiritually, and the outside is just a reflection of me moving into a different season, right? And so, but God wants to help me move to a higher level in my heart first before I can move into the next season physically. And so God's coming after me, whether that's a situation I had with the elders, or it was even something just as simple as helping somebody out, right? You see this? God just wants us to change our ways, and I realized that a lot of life, like I have here in my notes, you know, I was kind of all over the place today, but it's just my mind this week. And I realized that we make life too complex. It's a very simple concept, right? It's like the solar system. You got the sun in the middle, and everything revolves around it. This is life. Such is life, right? You have one core purpose in your life. Keep that focus, and everything else will work itself out. Like Jesus said, you take one day at a time. Just be nice to people. Work hard. Not even be nice, be kind, right? Be kind to somebody, just for the sake of, because that's who you are. That's your character. Be kind, like HD said last week. Be kind to people. Just work with people. Be a team. And be receiving of correction. Be nice. Be kind to others. Work hard. You could sum up, it's like Jesus said, just be nice, you know, love your neighbor. It's like, you could sum up the whole Bible with just be kind to people. This is what Jesus did. He's just kind. He's just loving to others. He's open to the Father's correction to go to the cross. And because of that, everything's restored. You see that? Be kind, work hard. Everything will just work itself out. That way we don't get stuck in the cycle of the spirit of the world. Right? So, to wrap this up, as you guys go about your life, just remember that what you're going through is secondary to your purpose. Stay in your prayer and reading will help you, not just to check a box, but it almost resets your mind to remind you, that's right, this is my purpose in life, is my relationship with God. And when you do that, things start to slowly restore itself. And that's all I got. Amen.